Welcome back to Get Mossed for week 8 of the season. We are introducing a fun little twist to the show. Instead of doing our highlights at the end of the show, we are going to have players of the week for select teams. This week, every team will get a player of the week, and we'll show highlights for that player. So let's go ahead and get right into this week's episode. To get started with our recaps, there wasn't a whole lot of close games this week. Closest game was about 25 points. Going into our first matchup, Diggs in a Blanket versus Widget. Diggs in a Blanket handily takes this one like we expected. And his team was really carried by the performance of his player of the week, A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown with 4 catches for 121 yards, including 2 touchdowns. Really helped the team with his 28.1 fantasy point performance. Looking over at Widget, they only scored 89 points. It was a little rough here to pick a player of the week for them. The player of the week we had to give to Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey got 67 yards, 6-7, off of 9 catches, scoring 15.7 fantasy points. Like we said, we expected a blowout here. I think everybody in the league expected a blowout here. Moving into our next matchup, we have Steelers of Joy versus Ricky Stanicki. Steelers of Joy continues to slide. They are sitting at 1-6. They're sitting in 12th place. We'll start with the losing team's player of the week this week. Again, not many options to pick from here. We're gonna go with Michael Pittman Jr. Getting 7 catches for 58 yards, including a touchdown. Looking over at the other side, we did have Ricky Stanicki. His player of the week was Jonathan Taylor, who had a massive game on the ground, 16 carries, 94 yards, 3 touchdowns, and added 3 catches for 38 yards in his receiving category, putting up 34.2 points for a total of 132 yards. Huge for him. So like we expected, Steelers of Joy. We don't know what's going on with that team, but they're hoping to turn it around there in their team. Going to our next matchup, we have Team McElhaney versus the Goblins. McElhaney continuing his barrage of points on teams he plays. This one, we kind of expected the outcome of this game. His player of the week was Jackson Smith, who put up 8 catches, 123 yards, and 1 touchdown, putting up a total of 26.3 fantasy points. Moving on to the other side here for the Goblins. The Goblins had a big week on their bench from Xavier Legette, who I've been told is here. He has arrived, I've been told by some people. Now looking at his starting lineup, his player of the week was Drake May, putting up 222 yards through the air with 2 touchdowns, completing 21 of 23 passes, while also adding 62 yards on the ground. He had a total of 284 yards for the game in a win over Tennessee. Now, moving on to our next matchup, this one also was kind of rough. Jalissa versus Demarniac Arrest. Jalissa put up 98.14. Demarniac Arrest put 117.96. Demarniac Arrest, a big bounce back win after dropping 3 straight. His player of the week this week, was Christian McCaffrey. This one was a really easy choice. Put up 39.1 fantasy points, 129 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, adding 7 catches for 72 yards through the air. Huge week. Over 200 all-purpose yards. That was with Josh Allen on bye. He still pulled out a win. Looking over at the other side of the table here, we have Jalissa's player of the week, Devontae Adams. Put up 3 touchdowns on only 5 catches and 35 yards. So got 26.5 points there. Without that big performance from Devontae Adams, this one could have got really ugly. It did hurt having Justin Fields starting and Justin Herbert on the bench. If Herbert starts, we could see a whole different landscape where Demarniac Arrest loses 4 straight games. But that's coulda, woulda, shouldas. Moving into our next game of the week, we have Daddy's team taking on Jennifer Aniston. They did get a win here, 122.6 to 98.54. Looking at Daddy's team first, their player of the week, obviously Cam CTE Scataboo. He scored one time through the air, got 18.4 fantasy points, totaled 94 total yards, 60 on the ground, 34 in the air. Huge week for Cam CTE Scataboo. Looking over at Jennifer Aniston's team, his player of the week was a little easier, to be honest here. It was Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts had his best passing performance that we've seen in a while from him, putting up 326 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns, really efficient, putting up 24.04 fantasy points. Now moving in to our last game. This one was really close. At one point, Coop Cup Clan had the advantage, had a near 60% win probability on this one, but First Down Syndrome turned it up. Starting off with Coop Cup Clan, their player of the week, obviously Jamar Chase, 38.1 points on Thursday Night Football, a ridiculous 16 catches for 161 yards and a touchdown. Now, you put up 134 points, you beat most people on most weeks. But looking at First Down Syndrome team, man, Jahmyr Gibbs, 36.8 points is his player of the week. Put over 200 total all-purpose yards with 2 touchdowns on the ground and 3 catches adding on to that. Huge week for Jahmyr Gibbs. That is going to wrap it up for our recap of our Week 7. So let's go ahead and get into our projections for Week 8. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with our projections for this week. First game we're going to highlight here is going to be Coop Cup Clan versus Jennifer Aniston. Numbers have Jennifer Aniston pulling this one off, in our opinion, here at the studio. We really like the pickup of Gadsden off of the waiver wire. I think he's going to have a huge week again against the Vikings. We think he's going to have a big week. It seems that his rapport with Justin Herbert is only improving as the year goes on. And Tyler Warren has been playing extremely well there in Indianapolis. Looking over at the other side here, it is a big bye week for Coop Cup Clan. They do have to start Tyrod Taylor. You have Travis Etienne on bye. You have Trey McBride on bye. I think the bye weeks just really hurt Coop Cup Clan here, and he loses this matchup. It would put both teams at 4-4. Moving into our next matchup here, we're going to highlight Ricky Stanicki versus the Coblins. Some would say around the league that they would prefer to see both of these teams lose every week. We have been having Taliban accusations towards the Coblins. We do not know who they are affiliated with here at the Get Moss studio, but like I said, it's just allegations at the moment. I could see a upset here for the Coblins. Puka Nacua, he's still out, but he does still have Jonathan Taylor, who's putting up massive points this year. He also has Keenan Allen, who he's been up and down this year so far. Chris Olave had a big week last week. And Rico Dowdle, one of the breakout fantasy players of the year so far, looking to kind of keep up his steam. Looking over at the Coblins team, Drake May, insane week last week, just putting it on Tennessee. Jaylen Warren hoping to continue his run. He does have to start Kyle Monangai because of Kyron Williams on bye, so that could be the hindrance this week. That could cause him to lose, is a big bye week. But if he can just have one or two guys step it up, could we see him put Xavier Legette into the starting lineup? The coach of the Cowboys did tell me he has arrived. He's here. Will we see him in the lineup? We don't know. But I think for this week, we are going to go with Ricky Stanicki keeping it up. I think the firepower is just crazy. But we will say, this is going to sound like a cop-out, if the Goblins do pull off the upset, we would not be surprised here at the studio. Moving into our next matchup, this one has been talked about around the league as Daddy's team is just going to absolutely put it on Widget this week. We're inclined to agree, but Widget has pulled out 2 really big wins this year. They pulled out a win against First Down Syndrome, and they pulled out a win against Demardiac Arrest. First Down Syndrome currently tied for second place record-wise. Demardiac Arrest sitting at 4-3. A Widget upset would not be crazy. Now, that being said, we still think Daddy's team's going to win. He has CTE himself, Cam Scatabo. He has Saquon Barkley. He has Dak Prescott. He has Tucker Kraft. Looking over at the other side, there's Caleb Williams, Jordan Mason, Tajay Spears, Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey, we think, is going to have a big week. Jordan Mason, we don't know. We think that Minnesota is going to be playing from behind because LA puts up a lot of points. So they won't be able to really run the ball as much. It's going to be more of a receiving game for Minnesota. So be on the lookout for their wide receivers this week. But I think Daddy's team takes this one, barring anything crazy going on this week. Moving into our next matchup. This matchup could decide last place in the league. It's Jalissa versus Steelers of Joy. Steelers of Joy, like we said earlier, sitting at 1-6. They're in last. Then we have Jalissa here at 2-5. So they're in second to last. We'll start with Jalissa here. We have Justin Herbert, Chase Brown, Alvin Kamara, CeeDee Lamb. Getting CeeDee Lamb back at full health is going to be huge. You do lose Devontae Adams to bye week, but Josh Downs has shown he has good rapport with Daniel Dimes. Indiana Jones, some are calling him. And looking over at the other side, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Zay Flowers. The flex, I do like the flex start of Kamani Vidal. Like we said, we think this game's going to get out of hand for the Chargers. So we could see them just running the ball a whole lot. And he could get a lot of touches down in the red zone. Maybe a big chunk play here or there. That being said, this is going to surprise some people. We are recording this at midday on Thursday. We did see a funeral for Steelers of Joy today on the TC show. I think Steelers of Joy comes back to life this week and gets a much needed win to get off last place. It's not a very popular opinion, but I think we're going to go with Steelers of Joy pulling off the win here. Looking at this week with Diggs in a Blanket versus Demardiac Arrest. This one, I think, could be an extremely close game. Close enough that I would call this the Get Mossed game of the week. For our Get Mossed game of the week, it's 4-3 versus 3-4, but Diggs in a Blanket is on fire right now. They are one of the hottest teams in the league next to Team McElhaney. Now, looking over at Diggs in a Blanket, they do lose Travis Hunter and Marvin Harrison to bye weeks. So Raheed Shaheed does have to make a start this week. But comparing the two sides, we like Diggs in a Blanket. You have 2 really good quarterbacks facing off, and then you have 2 top-tier running backs facing off. It's going to come down to the rest of the skill guys. It's going to come down to an A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith matchup, who are going to take each other's targets. It's going to come down to a Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins matchup. Jalen Waddle has Tua at quarterback. It's going to come down to a Travis Kelce, George Kittle. George Kittle put up a big fat dud last week. But he also has Rashee Rice in the flex, who's going to take targets from Travis Kelce. We're going to go with Diggs in a blanket, keeping up the momentum, going to 4-4, evening out the season. Big bounce back couple of weeks for Diggs in a blanket. It's been astounding to see. We're going to go with Diggs in a blanket for the win here in our Get Moss game of the week. Moving into our last matchup, this is what some would expect to be our game of the week because it is a 6-1 versus a 5-2. But here at the studio, like we said previously, we think DeMarniac arrest versus Diggs in a blanket is our game of the week. Now looking at the numbers for this one, we do have Team McElhaney projected to take home the win against First Down Syndrome. Looking at the teams right now, big bye weeks for both teams. Jackson Smith is on bye week, and Jahmyr Gibbs is on bye week. Two really big bye weeks. So we're seeing Romeo Doubs get the start, and we're seeing Tyler Algier get the start. Obviously, one of those is not like the other. You can probably guess which one it is. But yeah, looking at the position players, Lamar Jackson is expected to be back this week for First Down Syndrome after missing the past 3 weeks. Or 2 weeks, however long it was. Going up against the other side, look at Baker Mayfield. 2 really good quarterbacks. Devon Achane and James Cook against Quinshon Judkins and Tyler Algier. Quinshon Judkins is going to have to score 40 by himself to match that scoring output on the other side because Tyler Algier might put up 3 points this week. It's that simple. Now, we do have a Jordan Addison versus Justin Jefferson matchup this week, so 2 guys that are going to take targets from each other. And we have Emeka Ibuka versus Romeo Doubs. Emeka had a quiet week last week coming off of the hamstring injury. Not sure if he was going to play. Game time decision. And then it's pretty even. You know, you have the greatest tight end to ever touch the football field, Kyle Pitts, and Jake Ferguson. This one you can't bet against Team McElhaney. We're going to go with Team McElhaney, get the win here, knock off First Down Syndrome, and move to 7-1 with a commanding lead over the league. That is going to wrap up our projections of this week. I really hope you guys enjoyed. We did receive a quote from head coach of Ricky Stanicki, Matthew Farley, regarding his dominating win last week. So we're going to go ahead and get into that, and I appreciate you guys for watching. Matthew had this to say about his team. He said, "We are proud of our guys for continuing to dominate through adversity the past 3 weeks. We turned the Steelers of joy into the Browns of joy. We did to them what they did to most of us last season. We face a much more formidable opponent this week in the Goblins."